Transported into Asia as if by magic. We'll be visiting animals from China to India, Cambodia to Nepal, and more. For your safety, you must remain seated at all times, and please keep your hands and feet inside the car. Now here at the Bronx Zoo, we are the headquarters of the Wildlife Conservation Society, or WCS. We have eco-guards and scientists working out in the field, as well as zookeepers working here at home to protect animals all over the world. And right here, we're starting to enter an area called our meadow, where we currently care for 3 different species of deer and 1 species of antelope. Right now, because it was very, very hot and there was a lot of sun on this meadow, all of the deer and the antelope that were running around here went to the shade at the back end of this enclosure. So we'll see them all a little bit later on in the tour when we loop back around to that back end. And I'll let you know when we start to get to that point, of course, and I'll also slow the train down over there instead so you have a chance to actually see them all since they're not on this side. Again, it's just because of the weather. It was very, very hot with the sun earlier out here, so they were just looking for shade to cool off. And they have more mud over by that back end, so they prefer it, especially on hot days. So again, we'll see them a little bit later on. For right now, we'll just make our way over to our next enclosure. It's about a second or 2 away, and we'll actually start to see some of our animals over there. But the reason this meadow is here in the first place is just because Asia is the continent with the largest number of deer species, so when you see all of the different kinds of deer we have in here later, you'll understand just how much diversity there is. But right here, we're just going to turn this corner, and then we'll enter the enclosure with a species that was actually on the verge of extinction. In fact, the Mongolian wild horse, or Przewalski's horse, they were extinct out in the wild and could only be found in zoos. You'll see them right at the start. They're all lined up, pretty much tucked into this corner, and if you have a good eye, you might notice that one of our horses is a little bit shorter and a little bit paler than the rest of them, and that is our foal that was born over the winter season about 7 months ago. And to date, we've had over 55 Przewalski horse foals born here at the Bronx Zoo since receiving our first animals in 1902. You might also notice quite a few differences between the horses that we have there and the more domestic ones that you're used to seeing. The Przewalski's horse does have a stockier build, shorter legs, and an upright mane, which is missing a forelock. And that forelock is just that hair that typically falls over a horse's forehead, similar to bangs. So that is why they look a bit more like donkeys than horses, but they are a species of wild horse. And they're making a bit of a comeback, as there have been several reintroduction efforts of their species in areas of Mongolia and China from herds in North American and Asian zoos. And I do also have a bit more information about them from one of our coordinators, Jonathan Slatt.
I'm Jonathan Slatt. I'm a Russia and Northeast Asia coordinator for the Wildlife Conservation Society. I believe that wildlife has a place on this earth. My job is to find practical solutions that allow people and wildlife to thrive together. Bill Przewalski's horse went extinct in the wild in the 1960s. On a recent trip to Kazakhstan, I saw about the ongoing and successful efforts to bring these horses back to the Central Asian steppe. The world needs happy stories. Watch the impossible become possible. You want to see hope be seen. That's what's happening today for Przewalski's horse.
This area here is still, of course, Przewalski horse territory. It's just their upper meadow. They were in the lower meadow, so that's why the second half is empty. But they transition in between the 2 areas throughout the day, especially depending on the weather, if they want a little more sun, a little more shade, or some coverage from any rain. On occasion, they do sometimes prefer the different grasses that grow in each area for grazing, so trust me, they do use every square inch of this very large meadow to run around and stretch their legs. But once we pass all of this foliage right here, we'll enter a huge pasture up ahead, and in that huge pasture, we'll be on the lookout for some very large cow-like animals known as gaur. And the gaur, spelled G-A-U-R, they're a relative of the American bison, which is another species of animal we have here at the Bronx Zoo. Some of you might have seen them, some of you might have not yet today, but they do look pretty similar to them, as they're sometimes referred to as Indian bison. However, the gaur will be a lot bigger, and I say that because they're actually the largest wild cattle species in the world. They can be up to 6 feet tall, 10 feet long, and weigh over 2,000 pounds. So for reference, that's roughly the size of a small car each, and we do have a lot of them here in their herd. You're going to see quite a few of them, and pretty up close. There's quite a few that are going to be right in front of the train in a second here to our right. They're in the center area of this pasture. And with their large size and their impressive horns that you're starting to see here, the male gaur, they can fight off just about any predator, even a tiger, and so the main threats to them these days are instead major habitat losses due to humans overfarming, as well as bovine diseases transmitted from our more domestic cattle and cows. Their horns are also a great indicator for their sex, as female gaur have horns that curve inwards and male gaur have horns that point straight up. Unsurprisingly, the males are substantially larger than the females, but it's a bit more fun to go based off their horns. And I do have a bit more insight about the gaur, but this time it'll be from one of our zookeepers named Dave.
Hi, I'm Dave, a wild animal keeper here in Wild Asia. When the Bronx Zoo received 2 female and 1 male gaur from the San Diego Zoo, it took a couple of introductions before all the animals were comfortable. But after a little bit of time, the 3 new animals fully integrated into the herd, and we have the family that you see today. A family group of gaur can consist of up to 40 individuals and is typically led by an older adult female called the matriarch. Since the 2 females and 1 male have been added to this family, there have been a number of offspring. This is important because gaur are considered to be a vulnerable species, so it's vital to maintain a healthy growing herd here at the zoo.
Now it'll take a few seconds before we see our next animal. However, as we're passing through, you might hear a little bit of background noise. If you do, all it is just city traffic coming from the Bronx Zoo Monorail Parkway, as it is directly behind us right now. Sometimes it can get pretty loud, so this large wooden fence you see in front of you is just what we use to kind of reduce and block out that noise for our next animal. It's just one of the ways that we make sure our animals are as happy and as comfortable as possible in their enclosures. So when we do turn right here, this is where we have our tiger. And tiger stripes do provide excellent camouflage, so they're oftentimes pretty difficult to spot. They are so secretive that even professional researchers on occasion can struggle to find them out in the wild. Today, it'll probably be a little bit difficult to see our tiger, as we have a very shy tiger named Suhana out here, and she likes to hide. So if you look to the right underneath the tracks ahead of us, she's walking kind of in between them. She'll walk behind some bushes just because that's how she is. So hopefully when we get a little bit closer over there, you'll get a better look. This is just kind of the way she is. She likes to hide, but do still remain in your seats, even if it is hard to see her. Now she is a female Malayan tiger, and of the 2 subspecies of tiger that we have here at the Bronx Zoo, the Amur and the Malayan, her subspecies, the Malayan, is actually the smaller, but it's hard to tell because she is in here by herself. And we just do that because they're a solitary species and they live alone out in the wild, so it is in their best interest to be in here all by themselves, as they get quite territorial, so they do prefer it this way. And tigers hunt a variety of animals, but they prefer wild pigs and medium-sized deer. Typically, a tiger will gorge itself on a fresh kill, eating as much as 40 pounds of meat at one time. And that's the equivalent of 160 hamburgers in a single sitting, so after a meal of that size, a tiger will usually not eat again for several days. The WCS has been a leader in tiger conservation, and our scientists out in the field tell us that there is reason to be hopeful that tigers are beating the odds against extinction. And you can always see more of them over at our Tiger Mountain, which is located just a short shuttle ride away from the monorail, or about 10 minutes walking distance from here. Now this little dirt patch is just where we have the back end of the gaur, so there's a couple on the top of that hill, but we saw most of them earlier in the tour. Next to it, though, is the back end of the Kanha Meadow. That's where we started the tour with the deer and the antelope that we didn't see, so you're going to see them here instead. The first ones that you'll see are some of our Barasinga. They're those brown/honey-colored deer, and their name comes from the male's antlers, which can be quite large and have up to 12 to 14 points. And these spotted deer are some of our axis deer, and they keep their spots for the duration of their life, rather than losing them as they mature like most other deer species. And on that hill in the back, we have our blackbuck antelope, the black one with the horns, that's our male, and the females are all of the tan ones with the white underbellies on that hill. Their species is sexually dimorphic, which means that they appear physically different based on their sex, so that's why they have those different colorations. You'll see a bunch more of these Barasinga right here and these axis deer. The Barasinga are actually sometimes referred to as swamp deer, as they're typically found living in marshlands in India, so they do love this mud. And on the right side, we have some of our Bactrian deer, and we have a fawn, we have a baby with this group. And the Bactrian deer, they're a similar size to the Barasinga, but they're much paler in color, and they're actually considered a subspecies of red deer, despite not being red at all. They're more of a pale gray/gold color, almost white, but nature's just funny like that sometimes. And that's everything from that first meadow. So you got to see them there at the back end. We'll keep on turning here until we see our next animal, which is in about a second or two. And our next animal is going to be our wild pig species known as the Babi Rusa. And we have two of our males out today. There's one in the first pen and one in the second pen right after him. And their skin color is very similar to their environment, so you do have to keep your eyes peeled in order to see them as they can blend in. And the males have these upper tusks that are over the top of their snout and curve back towards their eyes. And that is actually how they get their name, as Babi Rusa means pig deer in the Malay language, and their tusks kind of resemble antlers. If you struggle to see them though, don't worry, because our next animal will be practically impossible to miss. She's not only one of the world's largest land mammals, in a moment she'll be directly in front of us. Right now, you can't see her just because of the leaves that are in front of us, but once we get a little bit further up, she will be right in front of the train and you'll get a really, really good view, so just have some patience, wait till we get there. But African and Asian elephants, like the one that we have here, they are iconic animals worldwide, as we all know. Unfortunately though, they are struggling out in the wild. And Asian elephants, like the one that we have here, her name is Patty, they can weigh up to 10,000 pounds, so they do have to eat a lot of vegetation. For example, our elephants can eat as much as 200 pounds of hay and drink 60 gallons of water each day. And that trunk of hers has more than 40,000 muscles in it, and Asian elephants also have this unique finger-like adaptation at the base of their trunk that allows them to gently pick up blades of grass, or they can use those 40,000 muscles to tear off entire tree branches with tremendous force. So it's truly an incredible tool for them. Our elephants also get a lot of personal attention here at the Bronx Zoo, including baths and pedicures on the regular. And a little fun fact about Patty is that Patty's actually over 50 years old, so she's been here for quite some time, and it does make her a bit of an old lady for elephant standards, but it's extra reason as to why we pamper her here. And right next to where we have our elephant enclosure, we have this one that we're starting to enter with another large land mammal. However, in here, it's going to be our greater one-horned rhinoceros named Polly. And she's on the other side of this enclosure by the second mud wallow, so we'll speed up a little bit just to catch up with her. But many people do describe rhinos as armor-plated, Many people do describe rhinos as armor-plated, but they're just covered in one layer of skin that has a lot of folds in it, and though their skin will look thick and tough, it is in fact very, very sensitive and needs plenty of protection from the sunlight and from insects. And one of the rhino's favorite ways to protect its skin is to sit in a mud wallow like the one we passed and the one we're approaching here in a few seconds. For them, it works like sunscreen, and it's also very cooling on a hot day, so they love to sit in it, particularly in the morning. And we've also had a lot of success with our greater one-horned rhinoceros. Here at the Bronx Zoo, we help animals like the rhino and tiger by participating in cooperative zoo management programs called the Species Survival Plan. Simply put, it's a plan to help these animals survive, so zoos across the world will work together to maintain genetically diverse populations of rare and endangered species through breeding and training programs. And as you may have guessed, today all rhinos are considered either vulnerable or endangered, and recent estimations have the wild population of greater one-horned rhinoceros at around 3,700 in India and Nepal. We currently care for 4 greater one-horned rhinos, Kali being one of them, and we've had 14 baby rhinos born here at the Bronx Zoo. And a little fun fact about their species, or maybe not so fun fact, is that female rhinos, they can actually be pregnant for up to 16 months, a whole year and a half. And that baby will stay with its mother for 2 to 3 years, even though weaning takes only about 12 to 16 months, and weaning is when they stop nursing. And once that baby is born, it can weigh up to 80 to 100 pounds as well. Now I do also have a bit more information about the WCS's work with not just these rhinos, but also Sumatran rhinos to keep you entertained when we get to our next enclosure, as it does take a little bit.
The rhinos you see here are Indian rhinos. We work with habitats all over the world that are homes to rhinos. Here is a note from our field office in Sumatra, and Rulan, who works with the Sumatran rhino. Sumatran rhinos are the smallest of the world's rhinos, and they are considered critically endangered.
My name is Wulan Kuskarini, and I'm the Species Conservation Specialist for WCS Indonesia program. We carried out an island-wide survey of the last wild population of Sumatran rhinoceros in Indonesia. With so many unknowns on how to manage Sumatran rhinos in the wild or captivity, our study showed definitively that we must protect them at source. The cost of doing nothing could be the extinction of the species, and I can't imagine that.
The area that we're starting to enter right here, this is called our uplands meadow, and we care for a variety of other deer and antelope species different to the ones from our first meadow, so it won't be the same thing twice. You're gonna see pretty much all of them way further up ahead on that hill that's in front of us, just way further to the right. So it'll take a little bit before we actually start to see them. I'll speed up here as well, just so that we can catch up to them. Well, we have two species out here today. We have our sandbar deer and our Nilgai antelope. You're gonna see them further up ahead. They're quite large and quite brown. They're the only two that we have out here today. Typically we have a couple more, but it's the end of the season pretty much, and it's starting to get colder and the weather is getting more unpredictable, so it's not always the best for our animals. So some of our deer are not out here right now. We just have two of their species right now. You're gonna see them to our right here in just a second. The first ones you'll see are some of our sandbar deer, and they're the largest deer species that we have in this area and the largest deer species in Southern Asia, as the males can be up to 5 feet tall and weigh as much as 650 pounds. These are some of our males that you're seeing now. They have that dark brown color all over and those fluffy necks. And next to them, you're also going to see some of our Nilgai antelope. They're also large and brown, but they have a brown overcoat that's a little bit lighter than the sandbar, and a white underbelly with these black and white zebra striped socks above their hooves. And their name comes from the male's coloration, which is a bluish gray, as Nilgai Mughal in Hindi, but we currently only have females, so that's why they're all brown. And those are the two species that we have in here today. Right next to this large meadow is also a mini meadow that we'll start to enter in just a second. That mini meadow will house just one species of deer known as the Chinese tufted deer, and they're a very small species. They weigh less than 40 pounds, so they do frequently get mistaken for babies, but they're adults. They just look like that naturally. There's one that's to our right by the back fence in these leaves that you'll see when we're going through. Now they have that dark brown / gray color, so their natural camouflage is pretty good. You might miss them if you're not paying attention. So there's one by the back fence in those leaves. They typically hang out by the back fence just because they're warmer weather and they get more shade back there, so that's their usual spot. And their name comes from a very small tuft of fur that's at the top of their head, and the males also have these long upper canines, or tusks that kind of resemble fangs. So they are sometimes referred to as vampire deer as well. It's completely unrelated to their diet though, as they're herbivores. It's just a funny name for how they look. And we don't have a lot of them, we only have 5 in total, but we're still super grateful for that small amount, even when it is hard to see them, because their species is considered quite rare outside of Chinese zoos. And right here, we're just gonna pass back over the Bronx River once again, and thousands of commuters cross this waterway every single day without realizing the incredible habitat that it provides for native turtles, fish, and migrating birds like ducks and geese. So whether it's the Bronx River in New York or the Irrawaddy River in Asia, rivers and streams are vital resources for wildlife everywhere. And in this area, this is where you'll see our 2 wild goat species, the markhor and the Himalayan tar. Both of our goat species are excellent climbers, as they have these rubbery cores in the center of their hooves that help them grip rocks, similar to the sole of a boot. And they're also both native to mountainous regions out in the wild. You'll mostly see the markhor in this area. We have an abundance of them. They're the pale ones with the curly corkscrew-like horns that go upwards, and they're also the largest of the wild goats. But our Himalayan tar are to our right. We have 3 of them, and they're all female. They're the dark brown goats that you're seeing with the very short horns that just go straight to the back, rather than curling upwards. Again, we only have 3 of them, and they're all female, so they're right here. The rest of these goats are just markhor, and for the markhor, we have adult males, adult females, as well as baby markhor, which are known as kids. You're probably already seeing them. There's 11 kids in total in this area, and they were all born about 6-ish months ago, so that is why they're pretty small. And the markhor species are also such great climbers because they could jump up to 6 to 8 feet in the air without really needing a running start. So a lot of these rocks and tree stumps are things they can easily jump right hop over, jump right over as they climb literal mountains out in the wild. It's just how they exercise and have fun in here. And to our right, we have a very special animal. He's red and furry. It's our male red panda named Linus. You're gonna see him in the center of the tree, just kind of laying there. You'll get a good look at him, just wait for your train car to pass. And in Nepal, the red panda is called Han Ho, which roughly translates to firefox. And the Mandarin word for red panda, Xiao Shou Mao, translates to small bear cat. Today we know that red pandas are more closely related to skunks, raccoons, and weasels, more so than bears like the giant panda, but they both do enjoy snacking on bamboo. And you can always see more of them if you go visit our Himalayan Islands, which is located just a short 5-minute walk from here. And over at the Himalayan Islands, we also have another one of our Asian big cats, the Snow Leopard, as well. So if you want to go there, you just exit out of Asia Plaza and turn to the right. Just keep walking until you see the sign. But the red panda, Linus, he is the last animal that we're going to see during this tour, so further up ahead, I'll start to slow down a bit. It's almost the end. But you guys have heard from me and some of our animal experts here and in the field, and we really do hope that you guys have been inspired by all you've heard and seen today. If you remember from the beginning of the tour, the Bronx Zoo is part of the Wildlife Conservation Society, or WCS, in addition to the 5 parks we manage in New York City, the Bronx Zoo, the New York Aquarium, the Central Park Zoo, the Queens Zoo, and the Prospect Park Zoo. The WCS does also have scientists working out in the field at more than 300 sites in over 50 countries. So they do work tirelessly to find solutions and ensure the survival of endangered wildlife worldwide. And you do your part and help us, help wildlife just by being here today, so thank you all. Now we are starting to slow down quite a bit more. Now we are not stopping just yet. We're gonna make a brief stop before we make our final stop. The brief stop is just so that I can reset the train, and we're also waiting for the train ahead of us to move. So we'll be there for a little bit, and then we'll pull into the platform. So you can just sit tight during this time. But while we're waiting, I do have some information that I can give you guys. So because it is October, our fall events have officially started. So like today, it's literally happening right